As the first shimmering vessel breached our atmosphere, it was as if the entirety of humanity had inhaled a collective breath, suspending it amidst a cocktail of wonder, curiosity, and an unspoken fear. I, standing amongst the teeming masses at the public viewing area, watched as history unfurled above us, a gleaming craft, unlike any earthly architect could fathom, descended with a quiet dignity that belied the tumult it brought to our hearts. Our friends from the stars, they began calling them, a term that carried a hope as fragile as the silence before a storm. That hope was mine, too, as I entertained visions of a future unbound by terrestrial chains, where humanity would stride alongside new allies under the vast, uncharted canopies of alien worlds. Yet, as the days unfolded, the fabric of that hope frayed under the weight of skepticism and a growing unease. For every hand stretched out in friendship, there were whispers in the corridors of power, dark murmurings of defense pacts and weapons primed for conflicts we had yet to understand. It was as if the arrival of our guests had mirrored back to us, not the promise of what we could achieve, but the shadow of our most primal instincts to fight, to conquer, to survive. I found myself drafted into the diplomatic corps, an intermediary between worlds, carrying the dual burden of humanity's aspirations and its fears. The aliens, with their serene demeanors and unfathomable technology, seemed at once a beacon of peace and a specter of change that many could not countenance. Their attempts at communication, lyrical and complex, transcended language, but seemed to falter at the barriers of our mutual apprehensions. Then came the moment that would sear itself into the collective memory of our species, a misunderstanding at a joint assembly, a mistranslation perhaps, or simply a fear unleashed in a shout, a gesture misinterpreted as aggression. The response was immediate, a reflection of our worst fears catalyzed into a brief but terrifying skirmish that left no doubt of the precipice upon which we stood. As the smoke cleared, I looked upon the destruction, a testament to a war that could engulf worlds in its flames. Yet it was in the quiet that followed, amidst the smoldering ruins of our misconceptions, that I heard a voice, not of my own kind nor of the aliens, but a whisper of something greater. A call to step back from the brink, to understand not just the language, but the heart of those who had journeyed across the stars not to bring war, but to teach us peace. In that moment I realized the true journey was not to the stars, but within ourselves, to confront the shadows that lurk in the heart of our species. As we rebuild, I stand as a witness to the arrival not just of a new chapter in human history, but of the possibility of a future where humanity might finally embrace the peace taught to us by those we had once feared. In the aftermath of that fateful misunderstanding, the thin veil of hope that had once shrouded our world began to disintegrate, leaving behind a raw, pulsating tension between us and them, the aliens, who had once been heralds of a new era. I found myself thrust into the center of this escalating conflict, a liaison turned reluctant soldier in an army gearing up for a war we barely understood. It was during one of the many heated strategy meetings, the air thick with the scent of fear and determination, that I stood opposite one of the alien delegates. Their features were soft, their eyes a deep, fathomless pool of wisdom and sorrow. They spoke, their voice a melodic symphony that belied the gravity of their words. "We came in peace, not to conquer but to share and learn from each other," they said, their gaze piercing through the room, silencing the murmurs. "Yet we find ourselves on the brink of a conflict that benefits none." Their words resonated within me, amplifying the dissonance I felt. Around me, the machinery of war churned relentlessly, plans laid, alliances formed, and every resource mobilized towards ensuring our survival. Yet, what were we surviving for if the price was the annihilation of another world? I couldn't shake off the feeling that we were marching to the beat of an ancient drum, one that had dictated the rise and fall of civilizations before us, through fear, misunderstanding, and aggression. But amidst the planning and preparation, a question haunted me: were we so entrenched in our ways that we couldn't forge a new path? One not paved with the debris of war, but built on the foundation of mutual respect and understanding? As the days wore on, the specter of war loomed ever larger, casting long shadows over what could have been a golden era of interspecies alliance and shared prosperity. The aliens, for their part, seemed bewildered by our descent into hostility. Their attempts at diplomacy and peace met with skepticism and outright hostility. I found myself at a crossroads, torn between the duty to my kind and the truth I had glimpsed in the eyes of our visitors. The path of least resistance was to fall in line, to don the armor and wield the weapons fashioned from fear and prejudice. Yet every fiber of my being rebelled against the notion, urging me to stand for a cause greater than the survival of the fittest, a cause that championed coexistence and peace. It was a stance that did not win me favors among my peers, casting me as an idealist in a time when idealism was seen as a luxury we could ill afford. But if history has taught us anything, it is that the mightiest empires and the greatest victories are but footnotes in the annals of time, while the quest for understanding and the bonds of unity forge the chapters that truly endure. So I chose to walk the precarious line between two worlds, advocating for peace amidst preparations for war, hoping against hope that in the 11th hour, reason would prevail and we would find a way back from the brink. For in the heart of conflict lies the seed of our redemption or our ruin, and the choice, as it has always been, was ours to make. Standing amidst the chaos of what would be remembered as the first clash, I found myself face to face with an alien soldier. Their weapon, unlike anything in our arsenal, was aimed not to kill but to incapacitate. The air between us crackled with the energy of impending conflict, yet in their eyes I saw no hatred, only a profound regret. "Is this the path you choose, human?" the alien asked, their voice cutting through the din of battle. Destruction over dialogue. I could hardly believe the calmness in their demeanor, a stark contrast to the fury and fear that fueled our ranks. Around us, the skirmish raged, humanity unleashing its might, a display of firepower and strategy honed over centuries of terrestrial conflicts. Yet the aliens, with technology far surpassing our own, chose restraint. Their actions aimed to disarm rather than decimate, to neutralize the threat without loss of life. Caught in the male anxiety of war, I hesitated, my weapon raised but my heart heavy with doubt. The absurdity of the situation struck me, a dance of destruction choreographed on the missteps of misunderstanding and fear. Here we were, two species capable of incredible feats, reduced to the primal act of war. Why do you hold back? I found myself asking, even as I dodged a non-lethal blast from another alien combatant. Our strength is not for taking life, but for preserving it, the alien responded, their gaze unwavering. We wish no harm upon your kind, only to defend ourselves. As the battle unfolded, I witnessed the truth of their words. The alien forces, while formidable, used their superior technology to incapacitate rather than kill, to protect rather than punish. It was a tactic that bewildered and frustrated the human forces, trained as we were to expect, and deliver nothing less than total annihilation. In the midst of the conflict, an epiphany dawned upon me. The morality of our cause, the righteousness of our actions, began to unravel. What were we fighting for if not the perpetuation of the very cycle of violence we claim to abhor? Were we so blinded by our fears and prejudices that we could not see the possibility of a different outcome, one forged in the fires of understanding rather than war? The battle, though brief, left indelible marks on both sides. For the aliens, it was a confirmation of their worst fears about humanity's propensity for violence. For us, it was a mirror reflecting the darkest parts of our nature, challenging us to confront the reality of what we had become and what we might yet be. As the dust settled and the dead and wounded were accounted for, the cost of our folly became painfully clear. We had embarked on a path of mutual destruction, fueled by fear and misunderstanding, when we could have chosen a different way. The aliens' restraint was not a sign of weakness, but of a profound understanding of the true cost of war, a lesson we had yet to learn. In the aftermath, As I walked among the ruins of what had once been a symbol of our technological might, I couldn't help but question the necessity of the war. The conflict had not brought us security or victory, only a deeper realization of our vulnerability and the futility of violence. It was a moment of reckoning, a call to reevaluate our choices and the future we wish to create, not just for humanity, but for all beings with whom we share this vast, uncharted universe. Amid the haunting echo of the battlefield, where the dance of destruction played its grim tune, I found myself locked in a standoff with an alien combatant. The air was electric, charged with anticipation and fear, as the two of us stood amidst the chaos of our first major clash. It was a moment suspended in time, where the future of two civilizations teetered on the edge of our decisions. "Why do you fight?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper over the cacophony of battle. "Why, when you have the power to obliterate us, do you hold back?" Their response, carried on a serene, almost melancholic tone, pierced the turmoil of the war around us. "Destruction is easy," the alien said, their weapon a device designed to incapacitate, not to kill, lowered in a gesture of peace amidst the conflict. "Understanding is the challenge. We seek not to destroy what we do not understand, but to learn, to grow together." The simplicity and depth of their answer shook me to my core. Around us, the might of humanity was unleashed in full force, a testament to our technological prowess and strategic acumen. Yet for all our power, our approach was one of overwhelming force, aiming to decimate rather than disarm. In stark contrast, the aliens, with their superior technology, chose a path of restraint, their actions reflecting a philosophy far removed from our own. The realization hit me like a physical blow, forcing me to question the very foundations upon which we had built our response to this first contact. Our preparation for conflict, driven by the instinct to protect our own, had blinded us to the possibility of a different outcome. An outcome where strength was measured not in the ability to cause destruction, but in the capacity for empathy and restraint. As the battle raged on, I witnessed the aliens' efforts to disable our forces without causing irreversible harm. Their tactics were not designed to conquer but to neutralize the threat we posed, a clear indication of their desire for a peaceful resolution, despite our aggression. Caught in the midst of this revelation, I could not help but feel a profound sense of disquiet about the path humanity had chosen. The morality of our cause, the justification for our actions, all came into question as I observed the aliens' commitment to preserving life, even in the face of hostility. The first conflict, while brief, served as a pivotal moment in my understanding of the broader confrontation between our species. It highlighted the stark differences in our approaches to conflict and underscored the potential for a peaceful coexistence, if only we could see beyond our fears and prejudices. As the dust settled and the echoes of the battlefield faded, I was left with a lingering sense of uncertainty about the future. The aliens' restrained response had opened a door to dialogue, offering a glimmer of hope in the shadow of war. Yet, whether humanity would choose to walk through that door remained an open question, one that would define the course of our relationship with the alien visitors and, ultimately, the fate of our species. In the aftermath of a battle that seemed both an eternity and a single heartbeat, I found myself not fallen, but captured. The alien hands that led me away were gentle, their grip firm, but not threatening. As we traversed the wreckage-strewn no-man's land between our lines, one of them spoke to me, their voice a harmonious blend of curiosity and warmth. "You have fought bravely, human. But it is not bravery alone that will end this conflict," the alien said, guiding me through the ruins. Their words, rather than filled with recrimination or gloating, carried a weight of sadness and an undeniable hope. I braced myself for confinement, for interrogation under harsh lights, but what I found was something entirely different. The place they brought me to was not a prison, but a space that spoke of peace and a profound respect for life. There, amidst the greenery that seemed impossible on a battlefield, they shared with me the essence of their culture. Our civilization has long moved past the need for conflict, explained one of my captors, who I came to know as a teacher rather than a jailer. We have learned that the strength of a society is measured not by its ability to wage war, but by its capacity to forge peace. As days turned into weeks, my captivity became an education. They showed me their methods of conflict resolution, advanced not in the technology of domination, but in the art of understanding and reconciliation. Their society was a tapestry of diversity and harmony, where disagreements were settled not with weapons, but with dialogue and mutual respect. Through their teachings, I began to see the folly of our ways. Our first instinct, to meet the unknown with force, seemed now a path paved with missed opportunities for growth and understanding. The aliens, with their patient explanations and demonstrations of their peaceful existence, offered me a glimpse into a future where humanity could transcend its warlike tendencies. I learned of their technology, designed not for destruction but for the betterment of life. They showed me how their advancements in energy, medicine, and in environmental conservation had eradicated the scarcities that so often underpin human conflicts. It was a revelation, a vision of what our world could become if we chose cooperation over confrontation. The turning point in my understanding came not from a single moment, but from a series of realizations, each building upon the last. I saw in the aliens not the enemy we had feared, but a mirror reflecting our potential, our capacity for peace, and our shared desire for a better future. As my time with them extended, I came to understand that my true captivity was not physical but mental, held by the chains of preconceptions and prejudices. The aliens had not captured me, they had freed me from a prison of my own making. When at last they offered me the choice to return to my people, I knew that I would go back not as a soldier, but as a messenger. I was to carry with me the lessons of peace, the knowledge that there was another way to resolve our differences, a way that did not require the sacrifice of lives or the destruction of worlds. My journey back to humanity was one of resolve and purpose. I had been transformed, not by the aliens' might, but by their wisdom and their unwavering commitment to peace. It was a gift of immeasurable value, and one that I was determined to share, to show my people that the path to our future did not lie through the fields of war, but in the gardens of peace and understanding. Returning to humanity was not a triumphant march, but a journey fraught with uncertainty and resistance. The lessons of peace and understanding I carried within me felt like fragile seeds in a barren field, struggling to find purchase in the hardened soil of human fear and aggression. I come bearing a message of peace, I declared, standing before a council of leaders, generals, and diplomats. A message from those we have called the enemy, but who wish to be our allies, our teachers. Skepticism met my words, a palpable barrier as solid as the walls of the council chamber. Disbelief and scorn painted the faces of those who had spent their lives preparing for war, not peace. How can we trust them? A general challenged, his voice echoing the sentiments of many. After all the bloodshed, you expect us to lay down our arms based on your word. Their distrust was not unexpected, but the depth of it, the reflexive rejection of even the possibility of peace, struck me harder than I had anticipated. I realized then that the battle for peace was not to be fought on the fields of war, but in the minds and hearts of my own people. I shared with them the technologies and philosophies of the aliens, their advanced methods of conflict resolution that prioritized life and prosperity over domination and destruction. I spoke of their society, where diversity was not a source of division but a foundation for unity. Yet, despite the passion in my words and the truth in my message, the road to acceptance was a treacherous one. For every ear that listened, there were dozens that turned away, locked in the echo chamber of long-standing prejudices and fears. It's not just about trust, I implored, seeking to bridge the chasm of misunderstanding. It's about understanding that there is another way, a path that leads us away from the brink of annihilation and towards a future we can build together. The resistance I faced was a testament to the depth of our cultural entrenchment in the ideals of conflict as a means to resolution. Yet, in the shadows of skepticism, there were glimmers of curiosity, a few open minds intrigued by the promise of a world where war was not an inevitability. My journey as an advocate for peace was a solitary one at times, a voice crying out in the wilderness of militarism and xenophobia. But as the days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, the seeds of understanding began to sprout. The stories of the aliens' culture, their respect for life, and their peaceful intentions slowly permeated the collective consciousness of humanity. The path to changing deeply ingrained beliefs was a long and arduous one, fraught with setbacks and challenges. Yet, with each conversation, each presentation, and each demonstration of the aliens' peaceful technologies, the wall of resistance began to crumble, brick by brick. In the end, the message of peace was not a sweeping declaration or a sudden reversal of centuries-old policies. It was a gradual awakening, a shift in perspective that began with a single individual and spread, one heart and one mind at a time, towards a future where humanity could finally embrace the lessons taught to us by those who had once been strangers from the stars. As the tides of change ebbed and flowed, the moment that would define the future of two civilizations dawned. Standing at the forefront of this historic juncture, I found myself not as a harbinger of war, but as a beacon of peace. The journey from the darkness of conflict to the light of understanding had been long and fraught with doubt, but it was a path I walked with a conviction born from the truth shared with me by our once supposed foes. In the grand hall, where the negotiations were to take place, the air was thick with anticipation. Representatives from both humanity and the alien race, the ones I had come to know as friends and teachers, gathered. We were there not to draw battle lines but to erase them, not to negotiate terms of surrender but to draft a blueprint for coexistence. It is not often that history affords us a second chance. I began, addressing the assembly. My voice, steady and clear, carried the weight of our collective hopes. Today we stand on the precipice of a new era, one where the strength of our species is measured not by our capacity for war, but by our willingness to pursue peace. The discussions that followed were not easy. Centuries of distrust and a legacy of conflict cannot be undone in a single meeting. Yet as we debated, argued, and slowly converged on common ground, a remarkable transformation occurred. The language of division gave way to a dialogue of unity, the rhetoric of fear replaced by a narrative of hope. I shared the stories of the aliens' peaceful society, their respect for all forms of life, and their advanced methods of resolving disputes without recourse to violence. In turn, they acknowledged the resilience and spirit of humanity, our capacity for love, creativity, and empathy. Together, we envisioned a future where our civilizations could thrive side by side, learning from each other and growing stronger through our diversity. As the final agreement was signed, a document that enshrined our commitment to peace and mutual respect, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought us to this moment. From the first fearful encounters to the brink of war, and finally to this summit of reconciliation, it had been a journey that tested the very essence of our beings. In the end, the resolution we achieved was not just a cessation of hostilities, but a testament to the enduring power of understanding and cooperation. It was proof that true strength lies not in the might of our weapons, but in the courage to embrace peace, to extend a hand across the void of the unknown, and to find, in those we once feared, the allies and friends we never knew we had. As I stood there, amid the applause and the smiles of newfound friends, I realized that this was not the end of our story, but the beginning of a new chapter in the saga of our intertwined destinies. A chapter where humanity and our alien counterparts would walk together into the vast, uncharted territories of the future, united by a common purpose and a shared dream of peace. This resolution, hard-won and precious, was our beacon in the darkness, a reminder that even in the face of the greatest challenges, hope can prevail and peace can flourish. It was a victory not for one side or the other, but for all of us, a triumph of the heart over the sword, of unity over division. And as the dawn of our new era rose, it illuminated a path forward, a path paved with the lessons of the past and the promise of a better tomorrow.